one of New York City's most ambitious cultural institutions, which took more than 10 years to create, has finally opened its doors. The Shed is a marriage between public and private funds, boasting an 8th-floor, star-studded arts centre that will commission, develop and showcase works from all creative disciplines. But with a price tag as high as $500 million, it has inevitably come with some controversy.
The project began without a client, but with an ethos. All arts under one roof, an anti-institutional institution that would be responsive to the ever-changing needs of artists in all media, at all scales, indoor and outdoor, into a future that we cannot predict.
The ribbon has been cut, and a decade-long project has finally opened its doors. Costing a whopping $500 million, the Shed is at the center of this new Hudson Yards complex, a place that aims to be its own bubble.
This is something we love in New York City, a place that has it all. The Shed will have it all: theater, music, dance, film, galleries, performance space, you name it, it will be here. And what I love about it is the focus will be on the newest artists, emerging artists, artists from every discipline, every point of view, every background.
With a focus on being more inclusive of all art forms and expressions, at the very outset, the opening act celebrates the influences of African American music on contemporary culture, called Soundtrack of America.
We're trying to create a place that's decentered, where all artists and all audiences can meet. A place that goes beyond binaries of art and sacred, or east and west, public, private, woman and man.
And it's not only the number of exhibition halls that display the creative work. The building has a trick of its own.
There is a fixed building, fairly traditional, with large span floor plates with stacked galleries and performance spaces. And on top of that is a shell that sits on 8 points, which are wheels. And those wheels allow the building, the shell, to telescope out and onto the open space to the east and increase or double the footprint of the original building.
And while many are praising the engineering and architectural feats of the Shed, there is also some controversy. The regeneration of the Hudson Yards has had some critics sour about the price tag. It's taken 7 years and costing around $16 billion thus far. It's the largest privately funded real estate development in U.S. history.
What I hope is that this serves as a model for not only further growth in New York City, but this should serve as a model for other cities around the world. This is the right way to do this, and the key to this is you can't be doing 3 or 4 of these at one time. This took my best team over 7 years of concentrated effort. This is what we did, and we pulled it off.
While the uber expensive apartments and posh stores around this installation may feel like a slap in the face to the city's lower income residents, the aim with this project always has been to celebrate diverse cultures and bring different communities together in this area. And one artistic attraction to espouse this vision is the staircase to nowhere, called the Vessel.
Well, we really were thinking about how to make a heart, a centerpiece to Hudson Yards that would pull people in, give them a moment to relax, to enjoy, to meet, to greet, and reflect back on the city around them, but also just to really socialize and engage and gather people.
The concept of the Shed was based on an idea to create a space that expands barriers, literally and figuratively in this case.
It was based on a hunch, an architecture of infrastructure, so flexible it could even expand and contract to expand its footprint on demand. And when it expanded, it would produce a space that would collapse the whole idea of front of house and back of house.
With the New York Times hailing the Shed as a project that could reshape and redefine the city's physical and cultural infrastructure, it looks like the hunch has paid off.
To talk about one of the most ambitious and high-profile additions to New York City's cultural landscape in years, journalist Paddy Johnson joins me now. Johnson is a freelance writer for Observer, where she penned an article about the opening of the Shed. Thank you so much for joining us today, Paddy. So, it's rare for a new institution to attract the kind of attention and the support the Shed has. And the New York Times hailed it as a project that could reshape and redefine the city's physical and cultural infrastructure. How much do you think this is fair, and how much of it is false hype, really?
Well, I think in some ways it already has redefined the city's infrastructure physically. I mean, there's a sort of an entire infrastructure around it. There's, new buildings, sort of a mall-like complex. And in fact, the city built a new subway that goes directly out to that part of the city. Before, it was just an abandoned train track storage place. So, I think prior to Hudson Yards having its name, nobody even knew what it was. So the subway going out there really activated that part of the city. Does it have the capacity to reshape the city culturally? Yes. And I think that's something that people are both in turns very excited about, and also have some trepidations. Mm-hmm. The amount of money that this cultural center gets is, I guess, it got $75 million from the city.
It is quite high, isn't it? And some people, I think, because of this, they find this cultural institution very top-down and culturally elitist because of its program, and they expect it to be more diverse. Do you feel like it's elitist in that sense?
Well, honestly, it's a little hard to tell right now. I mean, they've just started to unroll their programs. I was a little nervous by what I saw at the press preview, which, there was a lot of talk about diversity, but there was, I think, less show of diversity. One thing I will note is that within the comments, there were opening comments, there was very little to no mention of community. So I think that is perhaps an indication that diversity is not being thought about in the way that we might. I think that typically city institutions start to think about things. I mean, also just the programming thus far. The opening program has been. Some of the star shows are very white male. So that was another thing that had given me pause.
Mm-hmm. Also, honestly, it's not clear to me why Manhattan, so filled with arts and culture centers and institutions, needed a new one, really. What do you think about that?
Well, I actually think that Manhattan does need more arts institutions. I think the issue here is whether this was the kind of art institution we needed. Cities all over the world are becoming more expensive, and it's more difficult for artists to get by in these cities. But at the same time, artists, in order to work, really need to live in enclaves, communities that can build on each other. So artists need cities, and cities need artists, but the relationship feels a little strained these days. And so what I think we need are institutions that do a better job of supporting artists and the development of artwork from start to finish. The degree to which the Shed will do that is still up in the air. They are a commissioning institution.
Thank you so much, art writer Paddy Johnson, for joining us on Showcase today.